To help the combs work well during shearing, the sheep must sweat first so the wool has a bit of moisture. To do this, before they're taken inside, they're kept waiting, packed tightly together in a place sheltered from the wind. These are ready now for shearing later. Okay, let's move these sheep along. In the old days, to sharpen this, they would grind the stone. This is for sharpening the comb. This blade is now sharp. Now we have the comb and the blade. The mechanical shearing machines, predecessors to the modern electric ones, needed a person to turn the handle to transmit motion to the blades. But before they introduced mechanical machines for shearing sheep, they used hand scissors. Antonio still remembers how these scissors were handled, which first had to be well sharpened. I sheared, sitting on the ground. When I finished, I was all tangled up in wool. Back then, and even today, it was the shearing crews who handled this work. For a couple of months, they would move from town to town, serving those ranchers who requested it. Every stop is a good chance to sharpen the machine's blades and oil its mechanisms. The wool is stored tightly packed in sacks, separating the white from the black to sell to the mills and wool industries. In the past, with the price of wool, you could cover the cost of shearing and the year's pastures. Nowadays, the price has dropped so much that it barely covers shearing expenses. In a flock with so many black sheep, it's easy to find one of the so-called blessed ones, which are entirely black. Out of superstition, these sheep with all black wool were believed to protect the flock from dangerous lightning during storms. After eating, and before continuing with afternoon shearing, Gaspar and his sons take time to feed the lambs that are still nursing from their mothers. This way, we more or less control their weight. In the afternoon, the shearers will get back to work until all the sheep in this flock are sheared. A few days later, they'll be ready to head up to the Santa Maria farm, located at a higher altitude near the peak of Javalambre. Three weeks after shearing the sheep, summer arrives, and it's time to move the flock from Botiosa Alta to the Santa Maria farm to unite the flock and graze at the highest peaks of the mountains. It's also time to till the fields. While Maite and Enrique hold the lambs back and let only the mothers out, Gaspar counts them mentally, one by one, with skill. Minus 523. In the hallway, the ones we need to take. The ewes selected for breeding and the little lambs that are still nursing will go in the trailer, as they don't have the strength to handle the 22 kilometers they'll travel in this journey. Now, time to fill out the transport papers. With the first rays of sun, Enrique, with his blonde donkey and 3 dogs, sets off to guide the herd of nearly 600 sheep up to the peaks of Javalambre. During this first uphill stretch, Enrique and the flock move easily, as the heat hasn't started to press yet. The dogs are essential to manage the herd, especially where they must keep the sheep out of the sown fields. Tacha, stay on the edge. Go over there. Go up. Now we're going to pass through here between these 2 terraces. It's the only route we have here because there are almost 2 kilometers of terraces. And this year, everything is sown. This is it. And we have to cross up here. On this first part of the journey, before reaching the pine forest, It's common to find cereal fields along the trail. Fortunately, their owners have respected the pathways, making it easier to handle the flock. Another challenge that may arise during the livestock journey from one area to another is meeting another flock along the way. It appears that the flock from the nearby farm hasn't yet gone out to graze in the mountains, and Enrique needs to pass nearby, with the risk that the two flocks might mix. The good neighborly relations between ranchers in this area make understanding easier in these challenging moments. To allow Enrique's herd to pass, Rafael takes his flock to the opposite mountain earlier than he'd planned. Thanks to Rafael's goodwill and the excellent relationship among the farmers, Enrique managed to pass with his sheep without the flocks getting mixed up. They've gone that way, but look how all the sheep start bleating, and they see each other and want to join together. To mix, to blend, get past there, otherwise, untangling them later would be quite a mess. By 10 a.m., the heat begins to weigh on the shepherd and the animals' backs. This grass here is the finest. Upon reaching the hilltop, the pine forest begins, and a spring, a relief from the scorching heat, is nearby. Plenty of water flows. From the Cedrilla spring on, the path leads through more wooded areas with plenty of feed for the flock, since no other herd has grazed here in spring. More than 5 hours of walking have passed over a route of about 8 kilometers, but there is still a long way to go. The pine groves of the Sierra de Javalambre not only provide good shade for the animals and for the shepherd during these hot afternoon hours, but also offer rich pastures for the livestock. As evening falls, the large fountain indicates that the livestock has arrived at the Santa Maria farmhouse, an ideal place to water the livestock before they enter the shed. The first thing you hear upon reaching the shed are the constant and insistent bleats of the lambs calling for their mothers in search of nourishing milk. While waiting for their mothers, the milk lambs seek food from the udders of other sheep, which are wary of having their milk stolen that is meant for feeding their own young. Each tries to find the other amidst the chaos, so that within moments they are paired together. The same happens with the goats, who upon arrival at the shed have been separated from the rest of the herd. They and their kids also seek each other out to satisfy the hunger of the young. Gaspar, who brought the milk herd up to the Santa Maria farmhouse early in the morning, has been looking after the other flock, especially those births that were not expected. Once each young has found its mother, it is time to make use of the milk from the goats who do not have young to feed. When selling the kids, the goats need to be milked, otherwise their udders can get sore. All the hustle and bustle relaxes as evening falls. The night's rest will precede another intense day for marking the livestock. At dawn the next day, when 2 of the 3 flocks are already gathered at the Santa Maria farmhouse, Gaspar and his family spend the morning branding each of the animals in their herd with pitch. Preparing the workspace takes a fair amount of time. While heating the balls of pitch in the cauldron until they turn liquid, everyone works to set up the handling chute to guide each animal through, one by one. These are the branding tools, let's say the marks. This is the one we use nowadays, which has the initials of Gaspar Mengod. And this is the one that was used before here at the farmhouse, which stands for ST Santa Maria. When the pitch is at the right temperature, the first sheep are led through the handling chute, positioned so that their right flank is exposed to facilitate the task of applying the pitch to the small layer of wool that has started to grow. Today, the 4th, was when these sheep were sheared, so there's just enough wool for them not to burn. If you brand them the day after shearing, they tend to burn because the pitch is still hot. I don't like to brand them the day after shearing. See how the wool sizzles a little? This is a large cauldron for making porridge. When all the animals in the chute are branded, the door is opened to let them out and make room for the next group. Until a few years ago, the Santa Maria farmhouse had 7 people who contributed their work to maintaining the estate and a shepherd who tended to the sheep. Currently, all the work is handled by the 4 family members. We don't complain about lack of work. Even if there was one more person, we'd still have work for them. And they wouldn't be able to slack off, and even then, it might not be enough. I've never complained about having work. I've taken all I could handle, approximately 1,300. About a 10-minute walk away is the pen where Gaspar keeps the 3rd group of his flock. The 3rd group has already arrived at the barn to be branded, just like the rest of the flock. A brand that, along with the ear tag and the chip, will allow identification at all times of each animal's ownership. By noon, when all the flock is branded, the 3 groups, now united as one flock, will set out to spend the summer months feeding on the high mountain pastures. Gaspar will stay with the flock during these months, alternating between herding and working the fields and harvesting crops. A summer season during which this family of Masoveros from Javalambre will stay at the Santa Maria farmhouse until the cold and snow make them bring the flock down to the La Botiosa Alta farmhouse.